Dakota Jones, welcome back to the show, bro. It's been a while.
Thanks, man.
How long has it been? It's been a couple of years since you were on.
Yeah, at least a few years. Yeah, I don't know. I've been on here once or twice before, but every time, man, it's a big deal. I've been nervous all day.
Yeah, right. I'm sure. Yeah. Big high pressure situation as we talk about trail running. Actually,
the premier media publication of trail running. I don't think I'm even exaggerating at this point.
I appreciate you, buddy, and always enjoy chit chatting with you. Obviously, you and I are of the same vintage in this sport. I'm older than you are, but we've been through some wars, in our respective careers. I've always been a big fan of yours, and always just appreciate the way you approach the game, both as an athlete and otherwise. Actually, maybe that's a good place to start. This being the beginning of 2025, we're both 15 plus years into the journey right now. How are you doing beginning a new year?
I'm actually doing great. Yeah. I mean, it's funny talking about this. I recently realized that, I'm 34 years old now. And when I discovered trail running by volunteering at Hard Rock in 2008, I was 17. So I've been literally doing this for half of my life. Well, I guess in July, it's half my life. And, that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, it's crazy that you're 34. Just for the listeners here, when Dakota was coming up, I remember you getting signed to the Montrail Mountain Hardware team back in those days. I mean, that alone is a big throwback. Even
totally.
Even referencing.
There's a lot of people that are like, what is Montrail?
Exactly. It's still my dream that somebody put together like a consortium of investors to buy the Montrail brand from Columbia. But if there's any billionaires in the audience, feel free to hit me up. But yeah, I mean, I remember, your nickname was Young Money. You were this 19-year-old stud. Here you are, 34. I mean, it's wild. And you've done so much in your career. And, as we were just talking about before we press record, a lot of your legacy, I think, is going to be off the trail. And we're going to talk about that a bit here today. But yeah, what a privilege to be here in 2025, still part of the sport and the community in the way that we are. So let's not beat around the bush. You're here to talk about a couple of important things, and then I'm sure there's a bunch of different rabbit holes we can go down. But number one, you've got a big goal here around the corner at the Jackpot 100 miler. So maybe let's just start there. You're sort of stepping out of your comfort zone in terms of your typical racing style. Tell the people about it.
Yeah. So Jackpot is a 100-mile race. It's actually the USATF 100-mile national trail national championship. Specifically not trail. It's on pavement the whole way. It's loops of 1.17 miles, I think, are in this around this lake outside Vegas. And it is going to be very different from what I normally do. I've always been into the trails and mountains, but when I ran Javelina in 2022, it went pretty well. And I was that was the first time when I was like, maybe I could try something even faster. It was pretty fun because I ran basically every step of Javelina, and that's still a trail race, even though it's very runnable, but there's still 6,500 feet for over the race. And so I was always intrigued by running a flat, fast 100. How fast can I do it? I'm still intrigued by that to the extent that I'm doing it in about 2.5 weeks at Jackpot. But it's not just for me to see how fast I can go. And so the cool thing about a race like this that's loops is that it's really spectator friendly. And so we've built it into a big fundraiser for my nonprofit Footprints. Footprints, for those who aren't familiar, is a nonprofit. We put on these running camps for people who want to create personal climate action projects for their community. And we support them for the week of the camp and develop their project with expert mentorship. And then they can return home, and we continue to support them in a whole lot of ways with resources and connections to implement these projects in their communities. So yeah, I'm going to go run as fast as I can and use the spectacle to try to raise money for this. The day after the race, we got a team of Footprints mentors and campers who are going to do a 12-hour relay, and in return, I will support them. It's going to be a big party. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So, and you've made it explicit that you're chasing the American record, which is held by Zach Bitter. I was going to ask you if you were planning to take Alexander Sorokin to the woodshed down there in Las Vegas. Is that in the realm of possibility there? The world record, I should say?
Yeah, I think that is probably too long of a shot to go for. I guess if I was having the best day of my life, I would go for it. But I think that, I mean, the American record by Zach Bitter is an amazing accomplishment. And
Right.
it requires a 6:47 per mile pace for 100 miles. And that's an 11 hours and 19 minutes pace, you know? And so the Sorokin's world record is like 25 minutes faster.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so I mean, even being able to come close to Zach Bitter's record would be amazing. And I don't know if I can get 25 minutes more than that. But the funny thing, even about Sorokin's 100-mile world record, is that it was set in Israel, and of course, nobody outside of America cares about miles. So it's like his 100-mile split was like, I think they said it's like about a kilometer before the actual like timing point. So he wasn't officially clocked at 100 miles exactly. His like world record is like at least a kilometer after the actual 100 miles.
So it's a few minutes faster.
Yeah. So it's officially 10:51, but it's people are like, you know, it's not official, but probably around 10:48.
All right. You heard it here first, folks. Dakota Jones running 10:47 at Jackpot here in a couple of weeks. No pressure. You mentioned the 6:47 pace, I think you said, and it makes me want to ask like how deep you are in the data. You know, you don't strike me as like a spreadsheet guy, but with these looped courses and the timed events also, like you probably have to have a really well-defined strategy and like stick to it surgically. How much are you immersed in that type of stuff?
It's been fun. I'm definitely not a data guy, and I'm sure that some people could go really crazy on this stuff because this really does lend itself to numbers in a way that trail running doesn't. Like I always train by time really, or maybe vert or something. But like here, like the last few months, I've been definitely training by pace and distance, which has been actually a really fun shift. Like I'll go do mile repeats, or I've been doing like 5K repeats or 10K repeats. And I can like, I'm practicing like hitting a pace and trying to get a sense of like what this pace feels like for certain amounts of time. And so it's been pretty cool because I'm really good at running on perceived effort. And so like my goal has really been to like figure out what is the perceived effort of this pace and what is the perceived effort of that pace. And so that's not really a data way to approach it, but I am, you know, I've got like 2 different Sunto watches, which I've been like testing out and trying to find exactly how to get it right. And
really, so you're in the minutia of the performance coming up here.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I know how much time I have to do per lap. How much time per lap I have to do in order to like hit the splits that I want. And you know, I live in Salt Lake City, and just a few blocks from me is Liberty Park, which is like 1.4 miles around. It's like basically perfectly flat. And so I've been doing practice runs where I like a few weeks ago, actually, I did a 4-hour like hard run, and my mom came out and she was like,
I ask you about that. I was going to ask you about that.
And so I was like testing out, you know, how much like water to take, how much like drink mix to take, which gels or whatever. I've been playing with all kinds of different nutrition strategies, but you can like the nutrition's fun too, because I see my crew every 8 minutes or something. So,
really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Every lap. You know, that'd be a fun thing to just talk about here too. If we started the conversation, this being, you know, 15, 16 years in the game, like how much of this new age performance theory is bleeding into your own training? You know, is the carb literature like front and center in Dakota Jones' brain right now, based on how it's penetrated the mind state of every professional ultra runner in the world?
I think that I'm for sure influenced by it. I'm not. The literature that I read isn't about nutrition. I'm generally more on like the climate stuff.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I don't know, man. Like everybody's like, you need to eat like high carbs. And I'm just like, well, obviously, like it was always like as much as you can eat, the better, right? Like it wasn't like don't eat too much. Nobody was ever saying in an ultra, don't eat too much.
Yeah.
It was like basically eat this much if you can. And so now it's all about high carbs, and that just makes sense. And so my strategy kind of fits into that because it's always been like eat as much as you can.
Right.
And now because everybody's super into high carbs, like all these gels you can get are like just like more efficient. You know, you can get 50-gram gels. It's pretty awesome.
I know. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. And so I've been definitely trying to do that. And I play into it, you know, like what is, a lot of people are talking about like 100, 120 grams an hour is ideal. I think that's probably pretty broad. It's like I'm a 6 foot tall, whatever pound guy. It's like I need probably more than someone who's shorter, whatever. But I think I can do 90 to 110 pretty reliably.
Yeah.
I found I can eat a lot. My stomach's pretty good. And so I've been trying to do like about 60-ish, 70% of like from gels and the rest from like drink mix.
Yeah.
I definitely like to eat something, even if it's just a gel. It makes it feel more real to me somehow.
All right.
So I don't know. How does that seem real? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was more just interested in the, like, 16 years in you living in Salt Lake City right now, which is having this really, fun moment in terms of the group of people who are there. And maybe we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but you always have to continue to grow and evolve and improve. And especially as you get into your mid-30s, it's even more important to focus on those details. And you can't hide with youth and talent in the same way that maybe we were able to earlier in our career. And so it's just interesting to hear from you as to how much of that stuff you're really digging into at this point in your career. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your training and stuff too, but maybe before we get to it, just share a little bit about how this goal arrived on your radar, because it is very different for you. I guess you said it was Javelina, but like, was there anything in particular that made 2025 the right year to go for this?
Yeah. So like I said, Javelina got me interested in the idea of doing a race like this. And I looked around at races like this. But when I was looking at it, for one, I was like always going to do it sometime in the winter if I was going to do this, because it's a cool challenge, but my priority is still mountain races, and that's going to be the same. And so I didn't want this kind of thing to kind of get in the way of that. And my first thought actually was the Desert Solstice Invitational, which is on the solstice in Phoenix. But I ultimately decided against it because it's an invitational. It's around the track, and it's just like 25 or 30 people who are like invited. And that's really cool for what it is. But my main purpose of doing this is the fundraiser, and Footprints is all about collective action. And I was like, it doesn't make sense for me to go do this one hard thing and have a bunch of people support me at my like individual thing. Right. Like,
yeah,
like what I wanted to do was find a race where I could like go for a legitimate effort, but also involve the community, let them run, and find ways that like they support me one day, I support them the next day.
Yeah.
So Jackpot seemed perfect.
And it just so happens to be in Las Vegas, so you can go rage afterwards, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Actually, I think that must be Super Bowl weekend, isn't it? Or
no, it's the week after. And actually, I was thinking about that because like last year, I think the Super Bowl was in Vegas, right? Like, yes. There's no better way to eclipse anything you do than to put it in the town of the Super Bowl that weekend.
You're like, why are all these people here? They're here for the jackpot? No.
Yeah, that's right. They're here for my run.
Let's talk about your training a little bit. I mean, you just mentioned that, it's like forced a little bit of a change in mindset or psychology, focusing more on pace and distance rather than time and perceived effort. But you've been putting up some big numbers, dude. I was just looking at your Strava. I mean, you put up 120 miles last week, and it seems like a huge or big mix of volume and intensity. So maybe just fill the listeners in as to how you've been approaching this, and maybe any fun or value that's come from like the change in emphasis, again, this being, a decade and a half into your career.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest change in this is that I've created this training plan myself. I've always relied on coaches before. And specifically my coach has been Jason Koop forever, and he's awesome. And he's like a really good friend of mine. And I decided not to ask him to like create the training plan for me this time. And I was feeling really guilty about it for a long time. But I eventually realized that it's not that I don't trust Jason or something. I mean, the training I do really follows what he's always given me. It's more that I like wanted to participate in this in a way that I haven't in the past. I think I've always been like, so like, oh, I'm here for the experience, bro. That I didn't want to like learn about the minutia of training or something. And now I realize like I'm missing out on like a huge part of what makes racing and running so great. And so it's been really fun. I've taken a lot of what I learned from Jason. And I've found that like creating like an 8-day cycle works really well for me. Once I have like a pretty good base fitness, I can like go kind of something faster and then a long day and then an easy day. then something faster, and 2 long days followed by 2 rest days.
Two rest days in a row.
Yeah, 2 easy days. I mean, not rest, like easy. I don't know.
Easy. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe one of those being a full rest day, though.
Wow,
yeah.
That's interesting. How did you arrive at this being the patented trademark training philosophy of Dakota Jones? An 8-day cycle. I've heard of people like making a 10-day cycle or a 2-week cycle. 8 days seems novel to me.
Yeah. Well, it's not super scientific, but it has. So I've done something similar with Jason before, and it has worked for me. But again, like I think I did that for 3 cycles of 8 days, and then I had like a week easy. And I the first 3 cycles, like that was basically December. I did a really good job following that, but since then it's like been my sort of improvisations off of that have basically kind of blown that apart. But that's kind of the structure that I'm trying to riff off of. And it works for me because I really like the idea of doing like something hard when I'm rested. So there's always, before something fast, I have at least one rest day. And then the longer days always come after that, because the longer days are kind of meant to mimic being tired, but continuing.
Yep.
So I don't want to like destroy myself, but I also want to like make sure that I'm used to running kind of a lot when I have some fatigue in my legs. And then having 3 rest days scattered throughout that cycle is just really important. Like last year, I didn't race very well, and it's because I was tired all the time.
Really?
I was pushing it. I was just overdoing it. And it's like, I've succeeded in the past with high mileage, and I just took it to too high of a level last year.
Yeah.
And so I'd show up to these races and just like not have any push. And so I'm really trying hard to like hold myself to it. And like when I don't feel motivated, it's okay. Just stop, go home, take a day off. Like I'm really trying. Like I didn't actually know that I did 120 miles last week because I haven't actually looked at those numbers. I kind of really go off. Like I have this schedule and I'm like, that's what I want to do. But how do I feel? That has got to be the priority.
Yeah.
It's been working for me. I've also had a lot of ski days. Some of those 120 miles are on skis. So it's like
Nordic
last night we went Nordic skiing for like 12, 15 miles or something. And so
very cool, man.
It's easier to do that than running, it's easier on my body.
Maybe one more question on this. I'm just personally curious about like, do you actually put pen to paper on the plan, or is it something where you just like have the architecture of the 8 days in your head? You know what day you're on, you decide what you're going to do that day? Or do you actually map it out?
I mapped it out. Yeah, I've got I don't know where it is. I had a whole map out.
A calendar.
I drew it out, and then I did put it into a little document, and I sent it to some friends. Eric Sensman, shout out. He actually was a really good friend. He helped me out a lot with this because he looked it over and just kind of gave me some validation on it. And he suggested a few workouts that have been really good. Specifically, he suggested like these 2x10K workouts that I've been doing, which have been really cool. Look at
Coach Sensman.
Yeah.
The washed up retiree giving Dakota Jones some training. Love that guy. Yeah. So tell me about the energy in Salt Lake City right now. You're just sort of seems to be sort of plugged into the crew there. You got like Finn, the single track team. You got Mike, you got Leah, you got Costales, you got Caleb Olson. Like it's sort of a murderer's row, and it feels like there's good continuity and community there.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I've been gone so much the last year too that I haven't been able to engage with them as much as I'd like to. But over the past few months since I've been back, I've been really reaching out and trying to get more involved. And like, it's just been really nice because they've really welcomed me into the crew. I get invited to runs all the time, and like I'm on the spreadsheet, so I see what other people are doing and I can reach out.
Really? So you guys have like a group spreadsheet where you like say, here's my training for the week?
Well, that's new. And Caleb Olson made that last week. And to be honest, I haven't actually engaged enough. I saw it and I was like, that's a good idea. But then I got busy and so I didn't do it yet. But it's a cool idea because then you can see what other people are doing and I can jump in with them or vice versa. And I don't know, they've just been really welcoming. I had a bunch of them over at my house. We played poker a few weeks ago. That was really fun. So
do they view you as kind of the grizzled vet? Tyler and Rachel are there too. Tyler, I guess, would be the one person that's older than you are, but certainly not more experienced. Do they come and seek advice from the grizzled veteran Dakota Jones?
They definitely don't seek advice. If they see me as a grizzled vet, they keep that to themselves.
Yeah.
But no, they're really cool. It's been fun.
That's pretty cool. All right, so tell me about this New Year's Eve run you just referenced earlier in Lincoln Park, I think it was called, or Lincoln Park's the band. What's the name of the actual park?
It's also, I think, a park in Chicago, maybe. Liberty Park.
Park. Okay.
Yeah.
So you posted about this on your Instagram, and I went and looked at it on your Strava too, dude. You were absolutely hauling. So just fill the audience in about how you bid adieu to 2024.
Yeah. Again, I don't want anybody to take this as like a great training plan. I'm not sure if it was, but it was fun. So what my idea was, like I said, I kind of built this training into 2 blocks. And the first was from the end of November into like the very end of December, and then easy week. And then most of January into now it was the second block. And so after the first block and after like an easy week, I kind of wanted to do a test piece, both to just run hard for like 4 or 5 hours on pavement and see what that's like. And also to be able to test like some nutrition and like water, hydration strategies. That's it. And so it was really fun. I invited a bunch of people, but it was kind of last minute. And also everybody is trail runners, so they didn't really want to do this. But Mike McMonagle came out and he joined me. It was awesome. And I also had a few other guys. Anthony Costales joined me for the first few miles, and so did Andy DeRay, another longtime Salt Lake City crusher.
Legend, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Schemo guy, yeah.
Yeah, his brother had the world record here forever. So they all joined me. It was really fun. And my mom came out and my sister came out. They're all bundled up. It was a really cold morning in Salt Lake City. And but we had a table with all the nutrition stuff that I wanted to test out. And the idea was Mike wanted to run 50K. And so he was going to basically try to do 6:20, 6:30 pace for 50K. And my goal after a whole lot of iterations was to do 4 hours flat. And the first hour at 6:30 pace, second hour at 6:20, third hour at 6:10, fourth hour at 6 flat.
Dang, son.
And basically see what that's like. And I did it.
Dang,
it was,
man.
I learned a lot. It was cool. Some takeaways is like on the laps when I would take water, especially I'd take the a flask of like the NAC drink mix.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Something I learned from there was like, I would take I have a, half liter, 500 milliliter flasks, and I would drink one of those on a lap. And then the next whole lap, I was like pretty full. So at the race, I'll do like quarter liters, like 250 mils at a time. Cause then it's like kind of less all at once. It's also hard to stick to the exact pace. I was like looking at my watch so much. And I never do that. And it was weird. But I like was getting accustomed to like the pace. Definitely ran too fast sometimes, around the middle of it.
It feels like the psychological weight of that too is something that you have to condition yourself for in some ways, the idea of, because you're going to have to kind of lock into a pace at Jackpot too. And it can be for this one type of person would probably, thrive in that and just sort of like, keep checking in. But I think for me personally, it would be maybe overwhelming and distracting at sometimes. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure how best to do that. I don't think I want to be looking at my watch all the time. I think really what I'll be doing is like the Suunto watch has a function where I can set a loop. So it'll like do a lap every time I come to the exact same point. And that way I don't have to click it every time I do a lap. But maybe every 2 or 3 laps, I can look at and then I'll know how fast I'm going. And so that'll give me a sense of like how well I am hitting my pace, because I want to be hitting like 7:50 ish, I think per lap, 7 minutes, 50 seconds per lap. I think that's about right at Jackpot. So I can like check that every few laps. But yeah, another interesting thing about that was like at one point pretty early, I don't know, within around an hour in, I had to go to the bathroom. So I peel off, I jump in the porta potty, and I had gotten a little ahead of Mike McMonagle at this point. And then when I'm out, I'm just a little bit behind him, like 100 meters or something.
Yeah.
But it took me like a whole lap to catch him. And that was really hard. I was like, oh man, I was ahead and now I'm not, but this is exactly what's going to happen at the race, because I'm racing Rajpal Pannu, who just announced today that he's also going for the American record, which is going to be super cool. Yeah, he's amazing. And like, I feel like it'll be, if we both have a good day, it'll be super fun. But like, that's totally going to happen. It's like, maybe I go to the bathroom and then I have to be behind him a lot. But if I speed up to catch up, that uses way too much energy. So it's like, it takes so much patience to wait and just like trust that the pace I'm on is the right pace. Don't overdo it, and like just be okay, slowly, hopefully catching him,
Wow, dude. Whole different ball game, isn't it? All right, well, let's spend a bunch of time talking about the fundraiser itself. You said in a recent post that Footprints has provided you clarity in answering the question of like, why do you run? I think it would be fun to just start by having you expand on that sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, Footprints is a really special thing that I get to do. It's something that I feel incredibly insecure about all the time, and something that I'm always learning about. Because I'm the executive director of a nonprofit that's focused on like empowering climate action projects in communities around the world. And I have some experience doing things like that. I have experience working with brands. I have experience putting on events and like communicating with people, but I don't really have professional experience doing any of this. And that's okay, because the mentors that we hire to really enable these projects, they do have that. But at the same time, I am in charge. And so there's a heavy weight of responsibility that I feel on myself to do this. And it's hard sometimes, but it's also like, it's hard in the way that like training is hard. It's something like pushes me to be better, because all the work that we're doing is like making the world a better place. And I can see that I can say that in tangible ways. Like by bringing people together to address climate change, we're allowing people to both limit the impacts of this gigantic problem on our world, and especially to help the people who are most vulnerable to this problem to be more resilient to it. And, as a trail runner, I've really benefited from a healthy environment, from being able to travel around the world, from being able to meet so many great people and go into these like really, really extraordinary landscapes. And a lot of these places are threatened by climate change, and even by the lifestyle that I personally lead. And beyond that, like being an athlete is often selfish. It doesn't have to be like too selfish. Like it doesn't have to be something you're ashamed of, but it's something that I've always grappled with, like the amount of efforts and time and energy that I put into myself and I ask other people to put into me. And so Footprints has been a way to try to really take this sport that sometimes makes me feel selfish and like really lean into the community side of it, really much the way the Freetrail has, and be like, this brings so much to me because there's so many other people that like reflect this back at me, And so when we come together for running, we have a great time, but we can also use that energy to hopefully promote a better future for the world. And so the work that we do with Footprints is trying to define what like a better future looks like, and specifically like within the scope of what we can do as individuals. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, 100%. It makes, because, this is stuff that I mean, not specific to the climate conversation, but I often think about, I think you and I are similar in how we want to orient our lives, right? And that we all in some way are searching for purpose. And so I often think about this idea of life's work, and I've talked about it on the podcast a couple of times, but it's something that I've more and more been interacting with, just in internal dialogue and stuff. And I think it's an important way to really frame how you're experiencing the world, is like, am I doing my life's work right now?
Yeah.
So maybe if there's anything you want to add there, but also just like whether this sense of purpose was present prior to starting Footprints, like, because I feel like that would be evidence that, you are pursuing something that maybe you were uniquely meant to.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. That's
sorry, I don't know. I don't know if that came out clearly, but
no, it does. Yeah, it's something I really think about a lot. I mean, the thing that I spend most time doing far more than like drawing out my training or nutrition strategies. It's like I write my journal. So I have lots and lots of journals from the years past. And it's a really great way to reflect on this kind of thing. And it's kind of fun to talk about it because I mostly reflect on it personally. I'd say that this is part of my life's work. I think that life's work is about, for me, like I really do feel the privilege that I have. And I don't feel that in a sense of like I'm guilty because I have more privilege than somebody else. I feel really a strong sense of gratitude for this. And when I feel the privilege that I have, because my life's been amazing, man. Like I can complain about certain stupid things, but like I get to travel the world. I've met amazing people. I get to work so hard. I'm outside all the time. I eat well, I sleep well, whatever, my life's great. Yeah. And so like my life's work is about trying to provide the same like opportunities that I've had to as many other people as possible. And also trying to have the sort of wisdom to acknowledge that like those opportunities will not express themselves or manifest in the same way they have for me. Someone with my opportunity would not necessarily choose to trail run. They might choose to do something else. So like, how can I use the platform that I have as a trail runner, as a privileged person, in order to like support other people in whatever their goals truly are? And I think that's really come through in Footprints, because Footprints, the whole thing is like, we're not saying do this project to stop climate change. We're saying like, tell us about your community and your connection to your community and why that matters to you as a person. And then let us help you like bring out the best in you so that you can help your community in the way that you choose. That way we can try to help people really do their life's work to support their community.
Man, I love it. It makes me want to ask too, because I think like part of this discovery of life's work, it's sort of like the intersection of what you're good at and what you're passionate about kind of thing. Like what you have natural talent for. Do you feel like you've discovered a natural talent that maybe you hadn't discovered, where you have this, predisposition or aptitude towards the work that you're doing now in a way that maybe you didn't appreciate beforehand?
Maybe. I really do struggle with it. I love what I do. And I love like, especially the camp itself is like some of the most meaningful experience I've ever had. It's like we're at Craftsbury, Vermont, where we do the camp. It's like this amazing location. And we have like people who are engaged and motivated and passionate and want to do good. That's so cool. And also I find myself the rest of the year, like sending emails and trying to figure out an Instagram post, and it's like, I just don't feel super good at that. And honestly, lately I've been like I'm like, man, I want to be honestly like a mechanic. I want to fix an engine, because then I'm like, it's physical, it's tangible.
Just turn my stupid brain off and just let me use my hands for a little bit. I feel the same way so often. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it wouldn't be so, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have such an impact. It's like, I want to use whatever I have to try to like create a better world. And that requires learning as much as doing, same time, really. And so I don't know if I have an aptitude for this, but I do have a great sense of optimism that things can be done if you want to do them bad enough. And I think I have a really strong sense of like, I think I'm just brave enough to go for it, even if I don't always feel like confident enough to try it. And I mean, Footprints, everything I've done has had its ups and downs in a lot of ways, but like by trying to be humble about the way I approach this, it has, I think, really impacted people positively. Yeah. And so, cool. I think the question of life's work is probably lifelong, right? But yeah, totally. I feel like I'm in a good place now.
Yeah. I want to come back and actually maybe expand on that a little bit more in a sec, but I don't want to move too far off Jackpot before we talk a little bit more about the group of Footprints associated individuals who are going to be taking on, it sounds like a 12-hour relay the following day. Expand on, add a little bit more detail to that, because I think that's important as part of this collective action conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's really why I wanted to do it here. And so the Jackpot race is actually, they're really helping us out here, because there's not really an official relay component for the 12-hour race. The 12-hour race is on Saturday, February 15th, which is the day after mine. But they've let us do it this way for the fundraiser part, because they understand that it makes sense. It's a way to like really bring the community together. And so I've invited everybody from Footprints who's ever joined to come out to this race, and they can't all come, but we've got like, I think 8 or 10 people who are going to join us. We got past mentors, past campers, who are going to come out, a few board members who are going to join us. And the idea is that you can donate money for my race on February 14th. That's going to be exciting, competitive, but also like this team of Footprints people, they're working together to run as far as they can the next day in 12 hours. I'm going to be out there giving them food, water, encouragement, supporting them however I can. And like, that's, I think I think that's even more in the spirit of what Footprints is about, than my race, because it's like everybody working together to try to like accomplish a collective goal. And that's, try and just bring this fundraiser to sort of represent or mimic what Footprints represents as a whole.
Makes me want to ask too, just while we're on the subject of this fundraiser and Footprints, more just personal curiosity about like what you've learned now. How old is Footprints at this point? 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, 5. This is our 5th year. We started in 2021. Yeah.
God dang, man. So like, I'm sure it's obviously been a massive learning experience in so many ways. You've already said there's been highs and lows, but like just thinking about the fundraising process itself, like anything that you've learned that's particularly valuable as it relates to the economics of a nonprofit that you've wrestled with over the last 5 years that maybe other people might draw education from?
Well, I mean, the nonprofits are hard. Anybody who's ever worked in a nonprofit knows that. I don't make money doing this. And I do quite a lot of work. And someday in the future, it'd be nice to earn some money doing this.
To pay yourself as the executive director? Holy shit.
I think I can pay myself a little bit this year, but because it's not, that's not what this is about really,
right.
But it's like, I talk about paying myself because it's something I do think about, because when people do, Jordan Whetstone talks about like heart work, this like passion projects, it's like we can all do that for so long. We're so into it.
Heart work. I love that. What was that person's name?
Her name is Jordan Whetstone.
Okay.
She runs an organization called Rising Hearts.
Yes, Rising Hearts.
She's been a huge inspiration, and she supported Footprints in some ways. She's really cool.
Writing it down.
Yeah. I really look up to her. She talks a lot about that. But this hard work, it takes a toll on you. Yeah. And so if I am not able to like, pay myself or somehow get some sort of compensation, it can mean that I would like build resentment maybe or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's not really what this is about. What this is about, this fundraiser and like the nonprofit in general has been a learning process for me to try to figure out how to do something good, but also run a business that literally relies on me asking people for money. And I hate that. I don't like I said, like this idea of like being a mechanic. I'm like, I want to do physical work that has like a clear value and I'm paid commensurately for the value that I provide. Whereas like now I'm going to be like, we have a camp in Vermont, but I'm going to go to Las Vegas and run 100 miles and maybe give us some money because that's cool.
Yeah.
It feels very, very strange to me. And I feel like I'm doing a really bad job of convincing people to give me money. But I think this is often how it goes. We do these spectacles.
This is perfect, man. It's like
we do these spectacles. We raise attention, and then people are like, "Oh, you're doing that cool thing. That's sweet. Why are you doing it? Oh, well, that's worth it." And so our goal now is just to like tell the story of Footprints as well as we can. And so we have really great images. Actually, Freetrail, Ryan Thrower has been at the last 2, and he's taken amazing images. He's created some great videos for us, and so we're going to be like showing all the work that we do and trying to really highlight the campers. And so it's been fun in that way too. It's like, I hate asking for money, but in order to ask for money in a way that feels authentic to me, it has made me like really highlight the people that we're working with. And like, that has helped me kind of, I don't know, recenter myself in why we're doing this work. And it's all about these people and their projects. And it's been really fun to kind of get to dive back into that.
A couple of comments for the audience here that I think are fun and relevant to this conversation. Simon Freeman, the publisher of Like the Wind magazine, I've referenced this a couple of times in different places, but he put up a post at one point last year that really resonated with me about like the reality of going all in on your passion in the same way that you and I have with Footprints and Freetrail respectively. And the fact that, as you said, the heart work, I mean, for me, it's this, right? Like, this is my life's work, Dakota, just talking about trail running with my friends. You're out there saving the world. This is my life's work. But, for both of us, outside of the heart work, there's so much more that goes into it. And really you spend 5% of your time on the heart work if you're lucky, and 95% of your time just blocking and tackling and putting out fires. The other thing that came to mind is a conversation I had with Brett Rivers, who was the founder and owner of the San Francisco Running Company. He has since sold it to Ted Knutson, who's been a fantastic steward of this amazing community locally where I live. But Brett called me a few years ago saying, "Hey, I'm selling the store. We're going to move to Colorado with the family." And so just curiously, I was like, so like, what's next? Knowing Brett like always has these ideas, he's independent, entrepreneurial and stuff. And he was like, you know what, man, I'm thinking about just getting a job and some health insurance and just like taking a break for a little while. So, you can only do your heart work so much. And at the end of the day, it's like, we're all just trying to do the best we can in the world. Anyway, a little bit
Definitely.
of a tangent there, but
it's about like, you can't support others without supporting yourself first.
Right.
And that's really reflected like in the camp experience at Footprints. It's like, we really support the campers as people first. Yeah. And then we do their projects, because everybody comes with, they're like, I'm going to come out with a project, but it's like, we really got to dive into your why, and diving into the why you want to do this is honestly like, it can like kind of rip you apart if you're doing it right. And it's really cathartic and powerful, especially when you're sharing that with people, but it can really rip you apart. And so like really supporting people first and then the projects is really powerful, because in the end, the projects are meant to support people in turn. So,
right.
It's kind of
right pyramid. Before we jumped on, I was chatting with Addie Thompson on the phone, who was a mentor at the 2024 Footprints Camp in Vermont. And she told me that last year you participated as a camper. So for our audience, that means that Dakota is the executive director. He's the leader of the organization, but that you went through the process on your own. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, we wanted to find a way to let me be there, because we want everybody to have a role. But I'm not a mentor. That's kind of the point. Is like I'm not saying I don't have skills, but I'm not like an expert in business or law or environmental science or whatever. And so we want to make sure that people have a role there. But also, we've done before this year, we've done 3 camps and we've done pretty well. But I feel like there's a huge value in actually like going through the process you build and seeing if it works and seeing if you can benefit from it too. And so my first thought was like, I'll make Footprints my project, but that just seemed like too meta. And I'm like, going to have the nonprofit to build a nonprofit. It seemed weird. And so really what I decided to dive into was like, I do have my own projects that go on that I think about. And, I've had this idea of giving live presentations for a long time and like telling stories, because I do like to write and I want to do a lot more of that. But I feel like we all tell stories and communicate so much on like social media, and that works. But like when we're in person, you can communicate in a totally different way that's so much more powerful. And I really want to get better at that. I want to learn how to create presentations that are really engaging and exciting and inspiring and like actionable. People walk away feeling like they know what to do and how to do it if they want to engage. And so, I really dived into like kind of how I want to do that. And so I'm a little embarrassed, or not embarrassed, but nervous saying this, but like, I do hope that this year I will be able to like maybe at a race or something, I'll like come out and be like, I'm going to give my little project, and it's going to be like an hour presentation. I'm talking about like trail running, but also how to like use your trail running in your community to bring out or to create positive change in your community, basically bringing the footprints action to every presentation.
Dude, I am moved right now. I mean, because I've known you for a long time, and I've always like especially loved interfacing with your writing and stuff. And you do have a natural aptitude for storytelling. And so if you can match that with what you're passionate about, this being climate advocacy and things associated there, man, that's where the life's work really takes off.
Yeah, exactly.
Was there anything, I think in software, I live here in the Bay Area, but I think they call it when you like actually use your own product, they call it dog fooding, like you're eating your own dog food. Was there anything like by going through the camp as a camper that like clarified something that you needed to know as the leader of the organization?
I don't know if it was some big like takeaway like that. It was a really good experience. Really though, like we changed a whole lot last year for last year's camp. We expanded our board of directors significantly from like 3 to 7 people. And we really rewrote our strategic plan and our mission, vision, values. And the person who really kind of designed the camp experience was a guy named John Moore, who's really, really cool guy, really smart guy, lives in Mexico City. He's from Detroit, and he's done a lot of events like this. And so he's the one who really created the camp experience. And I was in a lot of ways supporting him as he did that. And then we had the mentors like Addie create like their elements of it. And so it really came together. But the true architect was John. And so like then going through that experience was pretty cool because I knew what to expect in some ways, but then the experience was different. It always is different because the experience is like implementing with real people. There were a few things that were jarring. Like at one point we did a little kind of discussion. We did lots of discussions. And one of them was like discussing like ways you failed in the past as a way to like, if you choose to, you can share with the group, like what is some way you failed in the past. And it wasn't about like, it wasn't so much like talk about how you suck. It was like failure's okay. Failure's part of the process. You're going to fail and you failed before, you're going to fail again, but that's okay. Don't think of it as failure. It's like you messed up, but it's like part of like how we move forward. And so when you see other people also like doing what they think what they would call failing, it can be a really cathartic thing and really supportive. And we thought it would be like pretty good. It turned into like an extremely emotional, like super, super powerful thing because it was like later in the week, everybody trusts each other.
Isn't that amazing?
It was really cool.
When you can really share in an environment like that.
Yeah. We all trust each other. I mean, it takes, I don't know, maybe I'm like too like of an American man, but it takes a lot to make me cry. And I was definitely crying in this circle. And I don't mean to say like Footprints is like one of these like tree hugging camps where you go out and cry together, but sometimes this happens. Okay. It was super intense, but it was really powerful, really cathartic. It was super great experience. And then we stood up and it was like, okay, take some time for yourself. Then we'll have good lunch or whatever. And then one of the other mentors came up and was like, okay, let's talk about what we need to do next because that was intense. We need to manage the emotions. We don't want everybody to like go too deep and like, what are we going to do the next thing? And I was like, I'm still in this, guys. I can't be planning, but I had to. And so,
good, man. So good. I got to come experience. That answers your
question, but it was.
I can't even remember what I asked you, but this is beautiful, awesome conversation. We should, obviously call to action here, folks. Freetrail listeners, we got to get behind Footprints, and Freetrail's in, bro. I got you. Yeah. We're definitely going to be making a donation, and we'd really appreciate it if everybody would get behind Dakota and his crew and just, show appreciation for what he's doing and what he's trying to do in the world. I'd love to ask you if there's, I don't know, a story about an alumni or something that's particularly powerful for you. Like as you look back at the 4 or 5 years of Footprints, is there something where you look at and you're like, wow, like this is actually having an impact?
Yeah. I mean, we've had so many great connections with people. It's been really cool to see. I put so much of my time into this but I tend to assume that people come to the experience and then like leave and that they go back to their normal lives. But to see, especially like every year, people connect at camp and then I see them like going, like meeting up to go on runs together, or go on trips together later that year, the next year or something. Mm-hmm. And just seeing those ongoing connections, like the way we've helped facilitate lifelong friendships has been really powerful. But a really great story. The very first camp, Abby Sullivan, she's a triathlete and a runner from upstate New York. And she came to Footprints because she's from a town that's on one of the Finger Lakes called Lake Canandaigua, and it experiences all these harmful algae blooms. And she had she's an engineer. She had studied like the ecology of the problem and what's going on. Basically, there's all this like fertilizer coming into the lake that's like eating up all the oxygen, and she didn't know what to do because like she had the science, but nobody was doing anything about the science. And so during the camp, and especially after the camp, we connected her with a mentor who really helped her turn the corner on this. And she ended up creating a race after the camp. And so there's now a race in Canandaigua every year called the Canandaigua Mile. Anybody can show up. It goes right down Main Street. It's super cool. And they've been able to get like all the businesses involved in this race, all the local businesses, because you end at this like big grassy field, and then all the businesses have their stands, and it's kind of like a farmer's market. There's a big community cleanup, and then a series call to action. There's a nonprofit they work with, they raise money for. And it was really cool to see them put this together, because it was, for one, a perfect example of turning a science problem into an economic problem, because now all these people are coming to town for this race, and they're proving that like this place and this race are an economic boon to the town. And when the lake is not healthy, like this is not going to be able to continue.
Yeah.
Or if the lake is even healthier, it could even grow, right? And so they've been able to turn like a problem that people could ignore into something that is much harder to ignore because there's dollars behind it.
Yeah.
But even more so is like Abby came to camp and had a lot of thoughts. She changed her project a few times during camp and left like motivated, but like unsure of herself, and thought about this for over a year. And she kept apologizing to me. Like, I haven't done anything but with my project. I'm so sorry. And I was like, just, it's okay. Just like when you're ready, take your time. And it was really fun to see her like a year and a half after camp on her own, be like, I'm ready. And she put all this together. She reached out. We helped her connect with some people. And she's put this together with her partner. And so like to see that like Footprints has had like enough of an impact that a year and a half after being there, she was ready to then do all this work. And now the camp or the race is going into its third year. It's really cool to see.
All right. The Canandaigua Mile, is that what we're calling it?
That's right. Yeah. All right. I'll put it. You can put it in the show notes. I'll send you the link.
Freetrail's going. We're covering it. We're gonna go do live broadcast. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think a good takeaway there too is, as you mentioned, her being able to include the local small businesses. I mean, that's kind of, I'm sure, something you guys talk about a lot at camp too, is like at the end of the day, a lot of these solutions do have to, I don't know what the right word is, but like we do need, we had Erin Sprague on my other podcast, Second Nature, a few months ago. She's of course the executive director of Protect Our Winters. And she talked about just like the importance of having the buy-in from the brands in the outdoor industry on this stuff. And, you know, at the end of the day, we do have to do outreach and get buy-in from the businesses that operate in the communities in which your projects are evolving in. And that only makes those projects more likely to succeed and make the whole community stronger as a result. But
yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So I could tell you so many more stories of campers, but
awesome.
Probably run out of time.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we wind down, let's just like talk about your running a little bit more and fill people in about where you're going to be running after Jackpot. A couple of weeks ago, you were here in Marin. Yeah. You and Martina were here. You can reveal to the audience what you were doing in the neighborhood and fill people in on, you know, kind of what you've got going on through the spring and summer.
Yeah. I've speaking of privilege, right? I had to come to San Francisco in person because I've been applying for a visa to be in Europe because my girlfriend is Italian, and I've been spending a lot of time over there, and so I wanted to be able to spend some more time over there, and so I had this whole thing where I filled out the application and went to a meeting, and now I've. I don't know, it was a whole thing, but now I've got a stamp in my passport that gives me the opportunity to now go to Europe and like go to the real meeting where they will actually decide to issue me the visa or not. And so I will be in Europe, if assuming everything goes okay, from end of March until October of this year. Yeah. And that's part of my goals to, be with my girlfriend, but also to not try to fly so much. You know, I don't want to be going back and forth. I have always really tried to limit the amount that I travel in airplanes. And so staying over there as an opportunity to, avoid that and also learn the language. And there's some really great races there, some of which I'll do.
What else are you looking at? I'm sure your fans are desperate to know when you're going to make your return to the trails after your 100-mile American record.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to run Transvolcania again, which is the race I seem to do every year.
For the 6th time.
That's right.
Oh my God.
I had a great time out there. I've always had a good time. And I've started to really connect with the community there. And, one example is like, I won the race in 2023. And I remember I was running down the finishing chute and this kid jumped out of the crowd and ran with me for like almost a mile. And then like the ushers like kicked him out. But he followed up and reached out to me on Instagram. And I, last year when I went back, I reached out to him and we went for a run together. And he actually invited me and Martino over for dinner one night. And his name is Saidu. And he's this guy, he's from the Gambia. He's from Africa.
You posted a photo of this guy.
Totally. He emigrated to the Canary Islands. He's been there with his brother. And he came from a place that I can't even imagine. And he is just been integrated into the community. He works at these shelters for immigrants. He's like part of this running team. Everybody knows him. He's always volunteering. He just seemed like the perfect example of like the kind of person I want to be. I want to be like him. How can I like integrate myself into community and support people as much as possible? And especially for someone who's come from such a different community, I just really admired that. And so being able to connect with him was huge. And it's like a relationship I'd like to continue to try to cultivate.
Amazing.
And yeah, so Transvolcania is a great one. Great reason to do that. Try to do that some more. And then I'm going to run the Val d'Aran 110K. And then I got to choose
little stone collection there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how that goes. And then I got into the UTMB. But
Never heard of it.
Yeah, well, you should look it up. It's the University of Texas, like that is something branch or something. Like,
medical,
medical branch. Yeah. But then also I got. I'm going to apply for a resume spot on the World Championships team. So you can't do both. And so if I get on the World Championships team, I'll have to decide, but we'll see.
Well, hell yeah, dude. Well, I'm rooting for you.
I got Footprints in October, and that's right after the World Champs, and that's going to go great. It's going to happen either way. And
hell yeah. It'll be a good way to celebrate a successful spring and summer racing over in Europe, coming back to Vermont to do what you do there with the Footprints crew. Maybe final question then. I think, it's really hard, or it's really hard to like, when you're in the grind, like pick your head up and see the impact that you've had. And, this anecdote of the camper in the Finger Lakes area is a great one. But like, as you look forward for Footprints, is there anything like any big ambitious goals that you have for yourself in terms of maybe expanding it? Because I know you had plans to do one like in Australia or something like that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, I think right now growth for us looks like having the same number of camps, just one camp per year, but doing a better job of supporting those projects and those people after the camp, like all year round. We have our mentorship program. We're already doing that, but I think we can always do better. And so that's what growth looks like. I think, I go back and forth, but I just love bringing people together and trying to create some positive change out of that. And so that can be camps. I've also just been really inspired by like the Craftsbury Outdoor Center where we do it itself. It is itself a nonprofit. It's like a very sustainable spot. They have all renewable energy power in the campus. Lots of people training there for different sports like Olympic rowers, Olympic Nordic skiers.
Cool.
A lot of Paralympics people train there. It's really cool. I think like, to be honest, it's weird to put this out there, but like, I think my like super long-term goal is to like have a facility like that, where it's like, this is a spot like the Footprints like facility. It's like super sustainable, renewable energy. People can come here and like stay here and train and do good work, and defining what good work means, for us, is part of our mission. And
wow,
how can I like make this a center where it's like a physical location where people feel rooted and connected and included and accepted? Like, I think that would be the long-term goal.
Beautiful, dude. What a perfect place to close. Dakota Jones, good luck at Jackpot, buddy. Thanks for coming back on the show.
I really appreciate you having me, man. Yeah, it's always an honor.